On July 30, 2006, a user posted a thread on the Nichan Nyusoku VIP boards, a forum for conversation about anything and everything. This particular post he made was a challenge, a puzzle, if you will. He began by stating that upon seeing a thread by another poster claiming they had hidden 50,000 yen in Tokyo, which was then proven to be fake, he was going to take up the challenge himself. He really had hidden 50,000 yen somewhere, but there was one small condition. Readers only had 1 day to find it. He would collect the money at midnight if no one had found it by then. He promised to give 3 hints over the course of the day and posted the first one immediately. The hint consisted of the number 3, followed by the English letters GFF, the @ mark, and finally the hiragana for O. Then, at number 11, they'd find an envelope. It didn't take long for users to break the code. It was simple kana input. This method isn't used much on keyboards these days, but it's where each key on the keyboard represents a Japanese letter rather than an English letter, and the code spelt out Akihabara. The money was hidden somewhere in Akihabara. The poster was surprised that people guessed so quickly, but Akihabara is a big place. The other hint was the number 11. While users were arguing over what this meant, one person claimed that they had already solved it, gone to the location and found the envelope, but the money inside was gone. The original poster seemed surprised, but unsure if the person was telling the truth or not, so he urged everyone else to continue with the riddle. At 3:53 p.m, 2 hours after making the thread, the original poster then shared that they'd gotten in the car to check if the money was still there, but it was gone. Readers wanted him to share the answer to the riddle if the money was already gone, but he said he was going to check again. Maybe the envelope had been moved somewhere, and he didn't think that it would be solved so quickly. He begged whoever had found the money to post in the thread, otherwise he'd have to assume a homeless person or someone took off with it. At 4:38 p.m, he posted that the envelope actually was still there, but it was so dark that he could barely see it. However, he didn't feel that any of the readers were smart enough to crack his riddle, so if they could, then they best show him. Otherwise, he'd go and give it to a homeless person. A few minutes later, he posted again, this time revealing that he'd actually been lying. It wasn't there, so a homeless person must have taken it. That would have been the end of it, but the poster felt it was somewhat anticlimactic. He offered to hide another 10,000 yen somewhere, and gave everyone the answers to the previous clues at the same time. As many users had suspected, it was in front of the Akihabara Softmap 11 building. For the 10,000 yen, he gave a new set of clues, but before long, the story took a twist again. Some users claimed that the original poster had simply taken the money back himself. There was no homeless person involved. He admitted this was true, and to say sorry, he'd add 40,000 yen to the 10,000, making it the original 50,000 again. He threatened that he might take it back again though, so if they wanted it, they better find it first. Users continued to argue over whether any of it was true, so the original poster returned to set the record straight. He claimed that what he originally said was true. He really had hidden an envelope in the city, but there was no money in it, and he never said there was. What was inside the envelope was cockroaches. He had hidden an envelope full of cockroaches. Then he claimed he really had hidden the 50,000 yen as well, but he took it back before 30 minutes had even passed. Readers got angry that he'd deceived them, but he insisted he never said what they were claiming. He hid an envelope, which was what he said in his first post. And he really did hide the money, even if he quickly took it back. But he never said the money was in the envelope, which was technically true. As readers continued to argue, the original poster then posted one final comment that turned the entire thread on its head. Let me tell you the real trick. You should be glad you didn't find the envelope. Readers went back to his first few posts and discovered something that had been hidden in plain sight all along. A pun hidden in the Japanese. "I'll respect whoever can find it," he said. "Hontou ni yaru." Taken in the context of this sentence, everyone assumed this to mean that he really would hand over the money. If you were smart enough to find it, he would respect you, and he would go through with giving you the money. However, yaru also has another meaning: to kill. If you found the envelope, he would kill you. You should be glad you didn't find the envelope. That was the last thing he said before filling the page with creepy laughter. A simple treasure hunt immediately turned sour, and people continued to talk about it as one of the legendary scary stories to come out of 2channel today. And it wasn't even posted on the occult forums. There were rumors not long after that a homeless person had been killed in Akihabara on that very same day. Considering how much the poster had mentioned a homeless person stealing the money, it didn't take long to connect the two. No official news articles were ever found, however, so it was difficult to confirm whether the rumors were true or not. One thing was for sure, however: anonymous treasure hunts on the internet should never be taken lightly. Spam mail has been around pretty much as long as the internet itself has. These days, spam filters tend to catch most of it, but in January of 2012, numerous people living in Japan found themselves targeted by a strange, terrifying mail making the rounds. An email telling them to please go to Inuki temple. But what was this temple? And why were they being asked to go there? The email began like you might expect any spam to. "This is serious, so please read until the end. You are about to meet with misfortune." Then, it suddenly took a turn for the terrifying. "If someone visits you in the night, you must not open the door for them. Even if they continue to knock on the doors and windows, you must not look at them. If you are not yet home, then check to make sure nobody is following you. When you get home, please check your post. If you have received a letter without a stamp or name, do not look at it. And when you enter the house, make sure to take great care of what's behind you. This is the most dangerous time. Once you're inside, make sure to lock the door right away. When you enter your room, be mindful of the closet. Does it look the same as when you left? If your curtains are open, close them right away. If you feel something looking at you from the roof while you take a shower, stop immediately and evacuate. Before you go to sleep, make sure you check the front door and veranda carefully. No matter what, you mustn't be afraid. Place your phone by your pillow. That way you'll quickly be able to call for help if necessary. Do not go outside after 11 p.m., not even nearby. It will find you in the darkness. Be careful of both the darkness and the rain. You must come to Inuki Temple to avoid this terrible tragedy. Please come right away. I will contact you again soon if necessary. The message gave coordinates to find the temple and was signed by a supposed Shinto priest. Why a Shinto priest would be working at a Buddhist temple is unknown, and probably should have been people's first clue that something was up. But as you might expect, people were pretty freaked out upon receiving this mail. Most spam asks for the receiver to clearly do something, or at the very least click on a link inside. But this one did nothing of the sort. It spoke of something terrifying stalking the receiver, and gave clear coordinates to a temple that they should visit if they wished to get help. As far as scams went, this one wasn't asking for money. It wasn't asking for any personal details. It wasn't asking for anything, really. Just to be careful of something, and to come to the temple to receive help. People quickly took to Twitter and 2chan, asking if anyone else had received the same weird message. Turned out, many had. Of course, numerous people attempted to find this temple. The coordinates given in the message led to Tokyo Tower, and the temple was supposed to be located 1.9 kilometers from there. However, nobody could find any such temple by that name. There were numerous other shrines and temples in the general area, but none of them went by the name Inuki. In fact, no such temple seems to exist anywhere, let alone near Tokyo Tower. And on top of that, people weren't even sure if it was called Inuki. The two characters used for the temple name were those of dog and demon. Those two characters together don't make any known names, so it's possible to read it in several ways, Inuki being one of them. Another possibility is Kenki. Either way, no temple using those characters existed where the mail suggested it would, which then begged the question, why? What was this mail hoping to achieve? The message came from various addresses, including Yahoo and Vodafone, and had a series of random numbers and letters at the front. Replying to it led to an error that no such address existed. iPhone users were the ones most targeted, but Android users also mentioned receiving the same mail. To make things even creepier, the timestamp of the received mail was often from some time in the future, and the recipient's address was usually different to the person's actual one. But what was the point of it? It wasn't asking for money. It didn't have any links leading to a virus or anything else that might expose vulnerabilities. It was just a plain text message with nothing else attached. It's possible it was nothing more than chainmail, created by someone bored and trying to see how far the story might spread. It wouldn't be the first time. But it's also possible that it was something far more simple and meaningful. Someone was fishing for working addresses. By sending out mass mails at random, the person, or people, sending them would be able to gather a list of working, active addresses that they could then sell to the highest bidder for even more spam. The reason that people didn't see their own address in the receiver section was because the actual addresses were hidden in the blind carbon copy, or BCC section, which kept all of the addresses hidden from those who received it. This is a method often used by those who send spam mail, and by noting which addresses actually received the message, they would know which were working and active at the time. It's also common for those sending spam to change the from address to something that doesn't actually exist, and changing the time to something said in the future is as simple as changing the time on the phone or computer the messages were sent from. Numerous people reported after receiving the Inuki temple message that they were bombarded with spam afterwards, So there's a very strong possibility that this was the goal all along. Gather a list of working addresses, sell them to the highest bidder, and then move on. Why the person went to such lengths to create such a creepy message is another story entirely. But you have to admit, it got people talking about it, and they're still talking about it to this day. So hey, they must have done something right. What do you think the real purpose behind the mail was? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. On May 14, 2007, an anonymous poster took to the 2channel bulletin boards and posted the following. "I just killed my mother. Why? Why?" she screamed. The 2channel forums are no strangers to trolls, and many instantly took it for another troll post. A piece of news the following morning, however, had many questioning whether it really was or not. A mother had been killed in Aizu Wakamatsu City in Fukushima Prefecture. Her son had cut off her head. Suddenly, those who had seen the thread posted the night before weren't so sure anymore. Had they spoken with a real killer? Or was it all a terrifying coincidence? The first thing people noticed was the time. The killer posted the thread at 9:02 p.m. A user with the same ID continued to post several replies over the next few hours, eventually stopping at 11:20 p.m. The replies were mainly emoticons and nonsense. If we were to assume the poster really had killed his mother, then this presumably took place sometime before 9 p.m. News reports, however, stated that the mother died at 1:30 a.m., 2 hours after the user's final post. The mother's head was cut off, and then the boy attempted to cut off her limbs but was unsuccessful. He then left the house and spent the rest of the night in an internet cafe, watching Beastie Boys DVDs. At 6:20 in the morning, he called a taxi, and half an hour later, turned himself in to the police. No matter how you look at it, the times didn't match up. Maybe the killer had the times wrong. According to his own testimony, he killed his mother with a knife as she slept at 1:30 a.m. He lived with his mother and younger brother in an apartment, away from their father so he could attend high school. His mother was a kindergarten teacher and left work at 6 p.m. the night before she was murdered. She worked back in Onuma, where the family home was located, meaning her trip to and from work took an hour each way. This would have her home sometime after 7. If the 2chan user really was the same boy who killed his mother, he would have had to have killed his sleeping mother sometime between 7 and 9 p.m., while greatly mistaking the time as the early hours of the morning. It's possible, but highly unlikely. After killing his mother, the boy then went to a net cafe and spent the next 4 hours watching DVDs. Records revealed that the boy didn't rent a room with internet access, meaning it was even more unlikely that he was the 2chan poster. Various media outlets picked up on the story, but in the end, the time difference was just too great. There didn't seem to be any way that it could be the same person, and the boy never claimed it was him either. What was first seen as a troll post quickly became a terrifying glimpse into what might have been the mind of a real killer. However, the incompatibility of the times made that unlikely, and once again, it returned to being a troll post. But still, it was a terrifying coincidence that people continue to talk about until this day. There's a famous copy-paste from 2chan that's still passed around today. It's known as "I'm here." It goes as follows. On July 10, 2006, someone posted a reply on 2chan asking, Which TV channel shows the best footage? The thread seemingly ended there, with no other context as to what they were talking about. But then, 2.5 years later, on December 7, 2008, someone replied with, "Why did this thread die so suddenly?" It was followed by the reply, "I'm here." This alone might not seem strange, until you take a look at the times the replies were posted. The last reply was made in 2006. After that, the thread was apparently abandoned. Then, 2.5 years later, someone replied wondering why it was so dead. The time they posted this was 10:01 and 19 seconds. Then, only 31 seconds later, someone with a different user ID replied with, "I'm here." Was someone lurking in a thread that had been abandoned for more than 2 years? To reply within such a short time frame would have meant constantly refreshing the page, waiting for someone, anyone, to reply. For 2.5 years. What made this even creepier was the fact the first person, reply 31, posted their message with "sage" in their username. When you post on the 2chan forums, this will automatically move the thread up to the top of the board, alerting people that there's been a reply. However, if you include the word "sage," meaning to lower or put something down, then the thread isn't bumped to the top. It stays down at the bottom. If this person hadn't replied with "sage" included in their username, then the thread would have naturally been bumped to the top of the pages, and it wouldn't be so strange for someone to notice the reply. But for someone to notice it in only 30 seconds, with no way to alert them that there had been a reply, well, scary to think about, right? So how did they reply so quickly? One theory is that the same person posted both replies. Users are assigned a random ID number when they post, and these days it's quite easy to change that ID with smartphones. However, when the replies were posted in 2008, it wasn't quite so easy to change, and the 0 at the end of the IDs meant that the replies came from a computer, not a phone. Changing the ID could have been done, but it would have involved changing the person's IP address. Of course, this can be done fairly easily by resetting your modem, so it's possible that one person could have posted both replies if they were quick and prepared, but it's unlikely. Another theory is that it was a mere coincidence. Against all the odds, 2 people just happened to be in the thread at the same time. Again, not impossible, but unlikely. The most likely theory is that the entire thing was one big fake. Savvy 2chan users scoured the forums looking for evidence that the thread even existed. Only those 3 replies were ever copied and shared, so how could anyone tell if the thread was even real or not? It's not hard to fake some random numbers for an ID, nor to post something in the common 2chan format. It turned out that the autofill for the usernames came from the martial arts board on 2chan. If this copy-paste was real, then it had to have come from there. Yet searching through the dates listed in the replies, and even the unique user IDs found nothing. The post, apparently, never existed. It's possible that it was deleted or hidden somewhere deep in the bowels of 2chan, but it's also just as likely that the copy-paste was, in fact, made up. And there never was a person lurking in a random thread for 2 years, waiting for someone, anyone, that they could reply to. On August 2nd, 2017, an anonymous user posted a thread on 2chan. For certain reasons, I have 50 kilograms of meat that I don't know what to do with. I'm not a big eater, so I'd like to get rid of it quickly. A fairly innocuous thread, and certainly not the strangest thing ever posted to 2chan either. 30 seconds later, the replies started flooding in. People suggested he divide the meat and freeze it, or perhaps turn it into steaks. Others joked whether it was dog or human meat. The original poster replied that his freezer was already full, so that wouldn't do. And, being Nichan, the joke replies soon started rolling in. People told him to learn how to cut the meat at the joints for easy disposal. Others suggested putting it in a drum and throwing it in the ocean. Another poster told him to cook it and serve it to the police. Then it would be gone in no time. Someone else told him to just throw it in the trash if he didn't plan on eating it. Another suggested pickling the meat in salt so he could keep it for longer. At this point, the original poster replied again, this time to the person suggesting he throw the meat out. "Where I can get rid of the meat is the problem," he replied. "I don't really want other people to know about it, you know?" This prompted another flood of replies, joking that he was definitely talking about human meat, and some users even posted police emojis in jest. After receiving several more suggestions, including cutting the meat into pieces and disposing of it in the trash like the Inokashira Park incident, the original poster returned. "Can an amateur take apart a body?" he asked. "I've already drained the blood." As the replies continued on the best way to get rid of so much meat, another user remarked that this particular story sounded scarily similar to something that had happened on the occult boards years earlier. Nobody believed this to be a real post either, of course. After all, Nichan is full of trolls, and these types of threads are posted on a nearly daily basis. As the user noted, these types of stories or questions aren't uncommon over on the occult forums, so the replies came in thick and fast. Cut it up, freeze it, dispose of it in bags, stick it in drums and dispose of them, cover it in kitty litter, drop it in acid, etc., etc. Only 7 minutes after creating the thread, the original poster replied once again, this time not to anyone in particular, but to those still hanging around. Dissolving it is an option, but won't that smell? I live in a residential area after all. By this point, people were already discussing the finer details of committing the perfect crime, sharing knowledge of how easy it would be to get rid of if you were a fisherman, and the trouble of making sure you get rid of every last strand of hair. After getting a few more pointers, the original poster returned for what would be his last response in the thread. "Okay, I got it. I'll cut it up and dissolve it bit by bit. Then I'll probably bury the difficult parts in the mountains. You can let this thread die now." The original poster left after that, although the thread continued for another 10 or so minutes before finally petering out. And that was that. Another of the hundreds upon thousands of threads posted to Nichan each day got buried by the masses who moved on to other subjects. But something that came to light several months later would bring it to the forefront again. On October 31st of that same year, Shiraishi Takahiro was arrested in Zama City, Kanagawa Prefecture. Shiraishi lived in a residential apartment complex, and police found 9 bodies hidden across various freezers and storage boxes in his house. He had reportedly used Twitter to advertise that he was looking for people who were planning on killing themselves, so he could watch or possibly assist them. It took the efforts of the brother of his final victim to bring the man to justice, and it was through his investigative efforts to find his missing sister that police were finally able to close in on Shiraishi. As soon as details of the man's crimes hit the public, Nichan users suddenly remembered that post back in August, asking about how to dispose of a large quantity of meat. Had the criminal posted about his crimes on 2chan before anyone even knew he was committing them? Looking closer at it, the details scarily matched up. Shiraishi's victims were predominantly young women, and according to statistics from the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare, the average Japanese woman in her early 20s weighs roughly 52 kilos, the same amount of weight this 2chan user was looking to get rid of. Suggestions in the thread included cutting the meat up and storing it in freezers or other storage containers, just like this man had. Shiraishi reportedly also disposed of body parts in the trash, another suggestion that had appeared in the thread. But that wasn't what really caught people's attention. After all, you hear about this sort of thing all the time, and it's a common trope in crime fiction as well. No, what caught people's attention was the reveal that several of his victims had been buried in kitty litter. One of the suggestions in the thread was, if you remember from earlier, kitty litter. Not exactly the most common way to try and hide a body, and even in the thread, it was more than likely a joke reply. So when people heard that several bodies had been hidden in kitty litter, it got them thinking. It also got them digging. 2chan users then dug up another thread from September 6th, just over a month after the first one. This one was titled, "Tell me how to dispose of a dead body." First off, it's not like I've killed anyone. I'm asking just in case, so don't report me, the user began. But is there a way to get rid of a body that absolutely won't get me caught? Please tell me. At any rate, there's no blood coming out of the body, and it was probably due to drugs. Please respond as soon as possible. The joke replies immediately started coming in, as with the first thread. Suggestions of flinging the body towards the sun to dispose of the evidence without anyone finding it, burning it, eating it, making it invisible. All sorts of nonsense replies flooded in. Others told the user to consult with the police or even turn themselves in. One of the suggestions, however, proposed that having the case ruled as suicide would ultimately get rid of most problems, but remarked that it was also terribly difficult to successfully pull off. The original poster replied to this with, "Ah, I thought so too. I'll do my best." As mentioned earlier, Shiraishi reportedly posted on social media that he was looking for people who wanted to kill themselves so he could watch or possibly assist. He replied to some of them with, "Let's die together," insinuating that both parties would commit the act together when he had no such intentions of dying himself. For him, the joy was in the killing. He reportedly met his first victim sometime around August 23rd, his second around August 28th, and his third on August 30th. By the time this second thread had been posted, he had already killed 3 victims. He stole money from all 3 and strangled them with a rope around the neck, a trademark he would use for all 9 killings. He bought tools before he started his crime spree to help dispose of the bodies, and police discovered searches on his phone for how to cut up bodies. Even scarier, one of the replies to the second thread mentioned putting the bodies in a drum, as it was also suggested in the first, and the original poster replied, "I already did that the first 3 times." By this time, Shiraishi had killed exactly 3 victims. The second thread petered out a few hours later, when some users accused the poster of trolling, and he accused them of sucking the fun out of the post. And being that the threads are anonymous, there's no way to check whether Shiraishi actually posted either of them. And he's never confessed to posting them either. But the coincidences are numerous, and some of the finer details match up a little too precisely with the real-life crimes. Did Shiraishi talk about his crimes and seek advice on Nii-chan before the police caught up with him? We may never know, but you have to admit, it's a little creepy. What do you guys think actually happened? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. On September 16th, 2008, a user posted a thread on Nii-chan accompanied by a photo. When I got back from a business trip, there were 5 letters waiting for me in the post. There was no stamp or address on any of them, which means they must have been put in directly. It was the start of a live mystery that would span several threads over 2 days, before finally reaching its terrifying conclusion. The user began by sharing photos of the 5 letters he'd received. He couldn't place the order they were supposed to be read in, other than the first and last letters, but this didn't seem to matter much as they were largely incomprehensible anyway. The first letter started mostly normally. Asamu Sakuto-sama. Hello. It's been a long time. Nice to meet you. Do you by any chance remember me? I remember the first time I met you every single day. I believe this was fate. It was here that the letters descended into what can only be described as madness. Much of what the person, who signed off at the end as Leda, said was largely incomprehensible. When my eyes turned red and pure white, I was able to see inside you. Sorry for my messy writing. I can't move my hand very well. You have moments like this, right? My pet friends are probably the same. The woman continued, mentioning that she had just been let out of the hospital, which was why she was writing the letter. After a few more confusing pleasantries, she ended the first letter with, I keep hearing a song. In my eyes, my ears, my heart, my brain, the air, all around. I'll write again soon. Why? Lela. The user had no idea who this Asamu Sakuto person the letters were addressed to was. It certainly wasn't him, and he didn't know anyone by that name either. He then shared a picture that was included with the first letter, which instantly caught everyone's attention. The picture, presumably a self-portrait of the woman calling herself Neda, showed a woman with red eyes, red lips, and a solid red background. It was creepy, but the worst was yet to come. The original poster, who never gave a name and was simply referred to as the number 1 because he was the first to post, then shared photos of the rest of the letters, along with one more picture. It was this picture that sent the thread into an uproar, and it's not hard to see why. This picture showed a naked woman with 4 arms, 4 legs, eyeballs on various parts of her body and hair, and blood pouring from numerous places. It's a little too gory to show here, so I'll include a link in the description if you want to see it and read the thread in its full glory. Users debated what the picture could mean, and most agreed that the person who drew it had to be at least a little messed up in the head. This was seemingly confirmed by the contents of the other letters, which ranged from incomprehensible ramblings to what appeared to be longing statements for the above-mentioned Asamu Sakuto. Whoever this person was, Lela seemed to be close to him and missed his company. Asamu Sakuto-sama. We met again, huh? How are you today? I'm full of resentment. Why? That person is getting in my way. Whether I'm asleep or awake, they're always watching. These days I'm surrounded by trash. In a few years you will be too, huh? I'm fed up of being inside it like this. I'm gonna eat it all up. Has my voice reached you? Over and over it disappeared and burnt, but I still hear it. Has my voice reached you? Has my voice reached you? Has my voice reached you? Stay happy. Leda. In several letters, Leda misspelt Asamu as Asami, but it wasn't the only mistake she made, making the letters even more difficult to comprehend. The user showed them to his neighbor, but she didn't know anyone called Asamu Sakuto or Leda either. She suggested he call the real estate, but it was already after 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night, so he feared they would already be closed. To Asami Sakuto-sama. I noticed it from the start. When I was punished, I went white, empty, nothing left. Is it still there? I don't know anything anymore. How long has that doll been here? Now it's right behind me. And that's how people are born. I realized it. But it's also true that there are dead people too. I didn't know, but the ink person said it. It's ink, so I ate it. How dirty. Other users started to suspect that Leda was or had been in a relationship with Asamu, who she may or may not have met in the hospital. He may have been another patient or perhaps someone else she met there. Either way, she seemed attached to the man. Asami Sakuto-sama. Hey, are you well? I'm a little okay. Yesterday I made another new friend. You probably don't know them. I mean, you've never met them before, so... To speak honestly for a moment, there is someone I've wished to be apart from for a long time. However, it's not my husband. It's impossible. I'm going to drown. Today again I was unable to become a bird. I feel lethargic. The gods will also be angry if you disappear. If you return, they'll be happy. This is a large problem, so there may be smoke visible. Eat a lot and stay healthy. Next time, it will be over. Leda. The user decided to call his real estate to see if they knew anything about the letters. Perhaps Asamu was a previous tenant. The user had only moved into the apartment 4 months earlier from another city and, at the time, didn't know anyone and had no friends nearby. Other users continued struggling to understand Leda's letters. Asami Sakuto-sama. That December day was wonderful, huh? We only spoke a little and yet I was... It still smells fishy. Have you heard? The weather is fine today, but soon it will be swallowed by darkness. It's no good. Doesn't look like they'll forgive us. Yet for some reason, some are happy with that. Do you enjoy sex? It's so dark that I can't see. Is the cat still crying? In this unfair reality, I only reunite with that sad woman and throw everything up. Strange, right? It's been decided what must happen, so all I can do is do it. Wonderful. Leda. After getting through to the real estate, the user was able to dig up some information. Apparently, this wasn't the first time someone at his apartment had received letters like that. The person who lived in the apartment before him had also received strange letters, and as a result, ended up moving out. This, of course, didn't make him feel any better. What was so bad that the previous tenant had to move out over it? The user was able to get further information from his real estate that revealed the previous tenant before that one had been stalked 4 years earlier. Every day this man received strange letters in the mail, just like he had, and this went on for over a month. The woman sending the letters then started hanging out in front of his apartment and constantly ringing the doorbell. The man informed the real estate of what was going on, but he refused to go to the police and, before long, put in a request to move. Eventually, the woman's mother showed up and informed both him and the real estate that her daughter had been hospitalized, and she was sorry for all the trouble. Other users still continued to argue over whether the letters and story were fake or not, to which the user joked that he wished it was all fake. By 8:30 p.m, 2 hours after the thread started, a clearer picture was beginning to form. Apparently, the real estate got in contact with Lera's mother, and they were able to confirm a few points to pass on. After hearing from the real estate, Lera's mother reportedly called her daughter to check if what she had heard was true. Lera reportedly refuted that she had done anything and hung up. The mother then called her fiancé, who she lived with in Sendai. Sendai happened to be the same city the user lived in, meaning she lived nearby. The fiancé confirmed Lera had recently bought stationery, but their differing work schedules meant they didn't see each other a lot, so he didn't know what she was up to most of the time. Worried, the mother told the real estate she was going to drive to Sendai to see her daughter right away. It would seem that, if everything was true, she was worried her daughter might be relapsing. Much like Kisaragi Station, in which users followed Hasabi's real-time reports as she got lost in a strange, unknown place, users followed the strange story of Lera the Stalker and her mysterious letters in real time, as the original poster relayed the information he was able to dig up. They attempted to solve the mystery for themselves, while pestering the original poster with questions for even more information. As the story developed, Lera apparently disappeared from home, setting the entire thread on edge. Many feared that she was on her way to the user's house as they spoke, and judging by the contents of her letters, nobody knew what would happen once she got there. And just as they suspected, she did. At 9:40, 3 hours after starting the thread, the user posted that someone was outside his front door. It was locked, but he could hear someone scratching on the other side. The user called the police, and before long the scratching turned to knocking and constant doorbell ringing. The police eventually arrived, although the woman was gone by that time, and the user disappeared for several hours to go to the station for questioning. Upon returning, he informed the thread of what had gone down, although privacy laws meant he wasn't privy to many of the finer details. He also met Lera's mother at the station, and again, she apologized profusely for her daughter's actions before he returned home. Yet, when he got home, he found a new letter in the mailbox. This one, in the same handwriting, simply stated, "I'll be back." It seemed that Lera had returned in his absence. The user, understandably freaked out, informed everyone he was going to hand the note to the police the following day, as it was already after midnight, and also informed the real estate of his intentions to move as well. He returned the following night at 10 p.m. with an update on everything that had gone down during the day. In short, the woman who wrote the letters was indeed the daughter of the mother he had met at the police station. Lera, it turned out, was an online name she used to go by, and Asamu Sakuto was the online name of a man she met on a dating site when she was only in junior high. She had numerous troubles as a teen and was hospitalized, although she continued her relationship with Asamu. Eventually, it took a turn for the worse, and Lera started stalking him, which led to the events the user had earlier heard about from the real estate. The police then found Lera earlier that day, when she showed up for work, and they questioned her but didn't have much luck, as she was about as incoherent as her letters. The user decided that he still wanted to move after hearing everything, and the real estate showed him to a new place that very same day. To make up for the fear her daughter caused him, the mother offered to pay for his moving fees, and that, it seemed, was the end of matters. The terrifying saga of the letters came to a close. The user made his final post just before midnight on September 17th, well over 24 hours after it all began. Other users were left confused, however. Was this a real story? An elaborate hoax? At the very least, the letters existed. There were pictures of them. But they could have been easily written by the user himself. To the very end, he claimed they were real and never returned to say otherwise. He disappeared after that final post and never surfaced again. Another user, however, noticed something interesting in the opening and closing characters of all 5 letters. They spelt out, "Kore wa tsuri da." This is a fake. Was it a fake? Or was it just a weird coincidence? Until the very end, the user claimed his story to be real, but had everyone been played? To this day, people still debate it, and although it's not exactly up there with the likes of Kisaragi Station, it's still fondly remembered as one of the 2chan classics that took people for a weird, lengthy ride in real time. Was Rera a real person? Was she stalking people and leaving disturbing, incomprehensible letters in their mailbox? If so, what was to stop her from doing it again in the future? And if not, had everyone been played for fools? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. On April 26, 2011, a user posted a story on 2chan that garnered quite a bit of attention. 2chan users love a good mystery as much as the next person, and this particular story, a ghost story no less, gave enough information to allow users to go digging themselves and uncover whether the events were true or not. So, was it? Let's take a look. I'll include a link in the description to the full story, but to summarize, this particular 2chan user mentioned he was from H City in A Prefecture. A shocking crime took place there long ago, and another more recent crime prompted him to remember and share his story. According to the poster, the story itself was something he heard secondhand from a colleague, the person who actually experienced it. When the colleague was a teenager, a friend of his was renting an apartment. A woman had been killed in this apartment a few years earlier, but being a teenager, he didn't care. H City was apparently well known for its gangs of rough youths, and when the friends gathered at the apartment one night for a game of mahjong, the neighbour heard the noise and went over to complain. However, when the neighbour opened the door, they soon discovered why. Inside the apartment, they found a woman covered in blood dancing in the middle of the room, while the teenagers were screaming and jumped out the window. They hadn't been screaming because they were getting up to mischief. They were screaming because they'd seen a ghost. The event that prompted the user to share this story was another crime that took place in the same city. This crime saw an entire family killed before the murderer took his own life. As it turned out, that criminal was the same person who killed the woman in that apartment decades earlier. The story gave both the initials of where the poster lived, as well as certain dates and details of crimes that had taken place there. As you might expect, it didn't take 2chan users long to figure out what crimes this story was referencing. H City in A Prefecture turned out to be Hachinohe City in Aomori Prefecture. The story also mentioned being a port city, which Hachinohe is. The story also mentioned a woman, the blood-covered ghost, being murdered by an elementary school student. These types of crimes are obviously not very common, and with the city narrowed down, it wasn't too hard to find the crime in question. On December 21st, 1975, an 11-year-old boy was visiting his grandmother's house on the second floor of an apartment building with his younger sister. While there, he went downstairs to use the toilet and snuck into the apartment of a 29-year-old office worker. Despite coming from a well-off family, the boy intended to rob the woman, taking 50,000 yen he found inside the house. 2 years earlier, when he was only 9 years old, he had deliberately set numerous houses on fire, so he was known to already have a troubled background at the time. The woman returned to find the boy in her apartment. She screamed, "Thief!" and in response, the boy grabbed a knife from the kitchen and repeatedly stabbed her in the back. A neighbor saw the boy toss the knife and flee the apartment, and then found the woman on the floor covered in blood. She had been stabbed over 20 times. Police found the boy the next day when he returned because he was hungry. He was institutionalized and, for a while at least, that was that. After the woman's death, the apartment reportedly came to be known as a ghost spot around town. It didn't gain national fame, but locals claimed the ghost of that woman remained in her apartment and could be seen walking around, covered in blood. Over time, people mostly forgot about the incident, but on June 28, 2007, another incident was to occur that would bring the original crime back to the forefront of everyone's minds. In another apartment in Hachinohe City, a mother and her 3 sons were found dead. The husband hadn't shown up to work, so they called a relative to check and see if he was okay. It was then that the relative found his family. The husband was nowhere to be seen. Police eventually found him 40 kilometers away, sitting in his car on the side of the road. They began to question him when he suddenly reversed, put a knife to his own throat, and then drove right off a cliff in front of them. He was confirmed dead shortly thereafter. An autopsy confirmed that the family had died the night before. It turned out that after the husband had killed them, he then left the house and robbed a pachinko store before going on the run, eventually ending up where the police found him. Things got even stranger when it was revealed that he was the very same boy who had killed the woman in that apartment over 30 years prior. So, with all this under our belts, did that mean the story the 2chan user posted was true? It's not difficult to dig up details of a real crime and create a story based around it, after all. At the very least, the user was most likely a Hachinohe local. Despite the weirdness of both crimes, they never became massive nationwide news. They caused a massive stir in Aoyama Prefecture, but for the rest of the country, they barely registered as a blip. The story used actual facts from the 1975 crime and described Hachinohe in such a way that it could only really come from someone who lived there. Outsiders wouldn't know that this port city was full of delinquents and teen gangs in the 70s unless they, or someone else they knew, lived there at the time. The teens in the story were also mentioned as using thinner, which was apparently a very real problem in the area at the time. But again, not something you can just dig up on the internet. The apartment was also known as a ghost spot to locals, but it wasn't famous anywhere outside the city. Yet, oddly, this story was posted in 2011. The second crime involving the family, the one that supposedly reminded the user of the story, happened in 2007. This leaves a 4-year gap between hearing the crime and posting the story. Why did the user wait so long? It's here that things get even weirder. Users did a little more digging and discovered something interesting. The story about the blood-covered woman might not have been the original story. After all of that, it appeared to be a copy. An extremely similar story, not word for word, but definitely a play-by-play of the very same events, was posted to 2chan in 2007, only a month after the crime took place. It seemed to have been lost over the years and didn't garner quite as much attention the first time as this second story did. Yet, there it was. The same, more compact story, posted 4 years earlier and only a month after the real event took place. In the end, it seemed this story of the blood-covered woman dancing around an apartment was actually just a rip-off of another story that had been posted years earlier. Most of the events in the story were true, yes, and they likely could have only come from someone who lived in the area. But it most likely wasn't the user who posted in 2011. That, by all accounts, was just a slightly longer rewrite of the original. The original story was more vague in its details, however, never specifying a location. It gave the year, 1975, and mentioned a 5th grade boy stabbing a woman, but that was it. This second poster may have put 2 and 2 together and added further details to make their story seem more believable, or even might have been from the same area and thus felt an affinity for the story, further expanding on it to share with others. Whether this user was also from the same city, we may never know. So, what of the blood-covered woman and the teenagers in the apartment? The woman was a well-known legend around town at the time, but whether she actually existed or not probably depends on whether you even believe in ghosts or not. And the teenagers? Nearly 50 years later, there's no way to check. It's likely just a story someone created around a real crime and a real local legend that then made it big on 2channel decades later. It could be an embellished true story from someone's childhood, at least up until the ghostly part, but there's no way to confirm one way or the other. Either way, the twists and turns are more than enough to create a compelling real-life story, regardless of whether the ghost of a woman covered in blood danced around an apartment full of terrified teenagers. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. This wasn't a prank, but when I was in kindergarten or elementary school, there was an old filled-in pond near where I lived. My friend and I slipped in through a gap in the barbed wire to play with the buried young sardines in the swampy bottom part of the pond. But my foot got sucked into the mud, and it terrified me, and my friend was already up to his knees in it a further distance away. I should have just called for an adult to help, but I was scared, so I pulled my foot out and ran all the way home. My friend went missing after that, and I remember all the adults running around like crazy. They never found him, and I remember the teacher gathering all us students together to explain what had happened. Thinking back on it now as an adult, I don't think anyone even suspected that he might have sunk into that old pond. The land in that area has since been redeveloped, so I don't even know where the old pond would be now. I never heard anything about them finding his body while they were moving and rebuilding things though. Maybe he's still down there. Sometimes I suddenly remember it, and my heart starts beating wildly, even though this all happened over 30 years ago. This brief story was shared on 2channel on April 28, 2009, in a thread titled, "Sometimes elementary and junior high students play really awful pranks, huh?" All sorts of stories and anecdotes were shared in the thread, but for some users, this story in particular stood out. Many in the thread accused it of being fake, while others pointed out that the statute of limitations would have well passed by that point, so the user could go to the police without fear of arrest, although it would still cause quite the fuss. Others urged the poster to tell the family of what happened, even if it was 30 years ago, because they would no doubt want to know what happened to their son. In fact, the majority of users blamed the poster for abandoning his friend and somehow living his life all this time without ever telling anyone. The user posted under the handle Pelargonium, Kagoshima Prefecture. A quick search of his user ID also uncovered an earlier reply, where he stated that he went to Taniyama Elementary School in Kagoshima. This was enough for posters in the thread to start digging, trying to uncover if there were any reports of a boy who went missing in Taniyama roughly 30 years prior. The user himself also continued replying in the thread, even mentioning that he tried searching through satellite photos to find the pond, and while it existed in older photos, now it was nothing more than a residential area. He even shared one such photo, and claimed that he could only find the pond in the 1974 photo of the area. Things got interesting when another user chimed in, claiming that they went to the same elementary school around the same time, and they'd never heard anything about a boy going missing. This user was apparently 5 years older than the poster, but he had a sister who would have been in the same grade. A nice reminder that the internet is never really as large as you think it is. The original poster then asked the man to ask his younger sister if she knew about a parent and child who died in a murder-suicide when they were in the 1st or 2nd grade. According to him, if she was unaware of that particular story, then there was no way she'd know anything about his friend going missing, a much smaller case. As users collated more information about the poster and his story, he quickly backpedaled, instead claiming that he had no doubt that his friend survived. In his post, he said they never found the boy, and the teacher gathered everyone around to explain what had happened. Yet he changed his story, claiming the boy must have pulled himself out of the mud after he ran, and he probably hid in the bushes, afraid his parents would get angry at him, before returning home later. This, of course, does little to explain why he apparently never saw his friend again. Yet, he clung to the fact that if the boy really had sunk fully into the mud, they would have found his bones when later rebuilding the area. He never saw any news of this, therefore, it mustn't have happened. And if they didn't find his bones, then that meant he didn't die there. In an attempt to explain why he never saw the boy again, as other users quickly pointed out, the poster then claimed that this wasn't a friend he played with every day, just someone he happened to run into on that day. More of an acquaintance than a friend. Someone he knew from the area but wasn't especially close with. His story slowly became more convoluted as other users pressed him on every tiny detail and jumped on even the smallest discrepancies, and in the end, the user grew annoyed and finished with the statement, "I believe that he returned home after that," and he never posted again. Yet, very little ever truly dies on 2chan, and Kagoshima Prefecture soon became a meme on the boards himself. On September 6th, 2009, just a few months after he shared his story, a user posted news that a boy had drowned playing in a river, while his friend nearby remained unawares. "Kagoshima Prefecture, get over here," replied one user. "I absolutely thought Kagoshima Prefecture posted this," said another. "A Kagoshima Prefecture thread, huh?" said yet another. And yet another thread on the same news article saw more of the same. "Kagoshima Prefecture, get your ass over here." "Ah, it's the rebirth of Kagoshima Prefecture." "Oh yeah, there was a copy-paste, wasn't there? That one with the kid sinking into the swamp." But was it true? The original poster certainly shared enough information that users in the same thread immediately started digging, and even though certain nuances of the story changed as others pressured him for more details, the core of the story remained the same. When he was a boy, he went playing in a filled-in pond with another boy, and when that boy got his legs stuck in the mud, he ran off. users had a rough date and a location. If a boy really did go missing around Taniyama in the 1970s, there would be evidence of it. Local newspapers at the very least would have reported on the disappearance of a small boy. One thing users quickly discovered was that this wasn't even the first time the user had shared the story. He had posted the same story almost word for word, roughly 6 months earlier, in another thread. In this one, he even gave the boy a name, Hirokazu-kun. In this post, he claimed it happened during kindergarten, and that it made both the news and local newspapers. Yet he was so young at the time that his memories of it were rather vague. It should be noted that he never claimed the boy died, only that he never saw him again after that day. Yet nobody was ever able to find evidence of a boy going missing from that area at that time. A search of local newspapers from 1970 onwards revealed absolutely nothing. Further questioning the credibility of this story is the fact that he mentioned all of the adults running around like crazy, trying to find the boy. The filled-in pond was an off-limits area. It's common procedure for police and search teams to check these areas thoroughly, particularly when a young child is involved. This involves draining ponds and lakes, and dredging through muddy swamps as well. If the young boy really had gotten sucked into the mud, his body would have been found. So, if we assume this story to be true, that leaves only one possibility. The boy really did get out. There was no body to find because the boy escaped and eventually returned home. But that, of course, brings us to the final question. Was the story even real to begin with? In recent years, rumors have sprung up that a similar story exists in a book written by Hirayama Yumeaki. Hirayama collects scary stories and urban legends, particularly from around the Tokyo area, and some people claim to have read a similar story in one of his many collections. Yet, no one can seem to remember where exactly, and it's also been pointed out that his stories are often based on famous internet creepypastas and urban legends. So if this was the case, it might actually be the other way around, and it was his story that was influenced by Kagoshima Prefecture's story instead. It's possible that this story is true. If we take his claims at face value, then this happened when he was only around 4 years old. The panic and fear of seeing another child get stuck in the mud might be something that sticks with you for a long time, while the other events surrounding it quickly become clouded with age. Other events may have mixed in with his memories, such as the teacher gathering the students to explain something to them. Perhaps the boy moved away shortly after that, again explaining why he never saw him again. There are a lot of possibilities, but being Ni-chan, we can't say for certain that it's not fake either. Perhaps it was a story the poster came up with on a whim, or perhaps something similar really did happen, but he embellished facts when he shared it on the internet. We'll likely never know. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. On February 4th, 2006, a user posted a picture on Ni-chan with the following message: "You must not look at this picture." That was it, nothing more. Of course, if you tell someone not to do something, they're likely to ignore you and do it anyway. And now, I pose that same statement to you. I'm about to show you the picture that was posted in the thread, which has since been deleted but was saved by a few smart users before it was lost to the internet forever. Will you look at the picture? That's up to you, but if you don't want to see it, close your eyes now, because here it is. If you managed to resist the urge to look, congratulations on your willpower. And if you couldn't help yourself, congratulations, your curiosity has potentially led you down a dangerous path. Let's take a look at why. Given the choice not to look at the image, I, of course, clicked the link. The link in the original thread is now dead, but I was able to find a copy of it thanks to the Wayback Machine. And many others just like me were unable to resist the urge either. After all, what could be so terrible about an image that you're not even allowed to look at it? The real answer, of course, is nothing. If you looked at it, then you're probably thinking, what? It wasn't that bad. It wasn't even scary at all. Because it's not. A little creepy, maybe, depending on how you feel about the subject matter. But if you came across that image while randomly surfing the internet, you probably wouldn't even glance at it twice. So then, why did this thread cause such a stir? And why is it now considered one of the most legendary threads ever posted on 2channel? Let's take a look. It all began with that warning, and of course, people immediately clicked the link to see what the fuss was about. Numerous people looked at the picture and stated as much in the replies. About 10 minutes after posting the link, the original poster then returned with some news. To those who looked at the image, you must hold a service, so please get ready. Fill a cup with water. Once you've done this, please let me know. If you don't perform the service, something terrible will happen. I'm being very serious. So, if users looked at the image, they were instructed to fill a cup with water, and then let the original poster know so that they could hold a service. As you no doubt know, services are generally held for those who have already passed on, not people who are still alive. It was a little weird, but people went along with it anyway. Numerous users replied that they had their cup of water and they were ready for the next step. What could possibly happen next? Well then, let's hold the service, the original poster replied. Please turn off all the lights. Once that's done, the service will begin. Let me know again once you've done that. The next step was turning off the lights. It was starting to sound more and more like a common ritual, perhaps a game like Hitori Kakurenbo. But users did as requested and awaited the next step. The original poster then replied with a series of kanji to be chanted and instructed everyone to drink the water immediately after. And that was it. The end of the service. They were cleansed of evil. Otsukaresama deshita. You may have heard this particular term before. Very literally, it's something similar to, "O honored exhausted one." That of course doesn't sound very natural in English, and it doesn't in Japanese either. It's used as a set phrase after somebody has finished work or completed a difficult task. It's similar to how we might say, "Well done," "Good job," "You're probably tired after all of that," etc. When someone finishes work for the day and is about to leave, you say, "Otsukaresama deshita" to them. Thanks for all of your hard work today. This phrase, while seemingly nothing more than a polite throwaway at the time, later became very important. Other users questioned why a service was even necessary after looking at a photo, and the original poster claimed that it wasn't actually the image that was evil. The image itself was nothing. You could look at it all day long and nothing would happen. However, if upon being told not to look at the image, you went and did so anyway, that was the problem. It was a sign that evil lurked within you and it needed to be cleansed. If you were able to resist the urge to look at it, then you were fine. There was no evil lurking within and no service necessary to cleanse it. As you might expect, more and more people chimed in that they'd looked at the picture. They filled a cup with water, turned the lights off, read the chant, and then drank the water like requested. In return, the original poster individually replied to each and every one, as though a monk performing a cleansing over the internet, and warned them of the hidden dangers potentially lurking in their futures. This continued for roughly a week before the original poster suddenly disappeared. He was never heard from again. Yet the thread lived on, and it took another few weeks before someone noticed something odd. Looking at the picture doesn't actually have any effect. The real problem is that what the original poster is forcing everyone to do is dangerous. Those who drank the water like he said are in a lot of danger, I think. Why he used the word service, why he made people drink water. If you think about it carefully, you realize that he's done something terrible. Why it took this long for anyone to question the weird service is anyone's guess. But then, someone finally hit upon what might have really happened, and it turned the entire thread upside down. When he was done with the service, why was Otsukaresama the only word that didn't use kanji? He used them in all the other words just fine. It couldn't be that he meant Otsukaresama, could it? Holy shit. The point of this reply gets lost in the translation to English, so let's take a look at it. Otsukaresama is usually spelt with kanji. Kanji give a word an immediate, identifiable meaning, but you can of course spell Japanese using only the phonetic hiragana instead. As the user pointed out, the original poster replied normally with kanji everywhere, except this one word. That was a little strange, but perhaps done on purpose. Why? To hide its other, true meaning. Tsukareru means to be tired, as it's used in this saying, but it also has another meaning. To be possessed. Otsukaresama deshita. You have been possessed. It seemed everyone had been played for fools, and it had taken them weeks before someone realized it. As another user pointed out, it's a common belief that water summons spirits. They love water because it's a conduit that they can move through. By making people fill a cup with water and turn off the lights, this would attract wandering spirits. The chant strengthened this connection, and then by drinking the water, the person would be imbibing any spirits that may have latched onto it due to the service being held. They weren't being cleansed of evil. They were drawing it to themselves and taking it in. They were now possessed. Interestingly, the original poster never returned to confirm or deny these claims, adding to the mystery. After everyone realized they had likely been duped, and the original poster went missing, the thread naturally died down, but it wasn't forgotten. Far from it. The swift, subtle nature with which this user was able to dupe others into doing something over the internet that was intended, in essence, to curse them, was so well played that it's still spoken about today. Setting aside whether you even believe in curses or not, the way it was so easily set up that people instantly fell for it, and using Nichan's own nature against them, trolling the trolls, was an expert play that many admired, whether they agreed with the final results or not. Otsukaresama deshita. You worked hard today. And you also got possessed. If you managed to hold out and not look at the image at the start of the video, you can go back and check it now if you want. As long as you don't turn the lights off and drink a cup of water while chanting, you should be fine. Probably. And let me know in the comments below what you really think happened. Was it nothing more than a giant troll? A really smart play to curse somebody? A little of both? Let me know below, and I'll see you again next time. On July 14th, 2006, a Nichan user posted a thread with the title, "I picked up a strange diary." It seemed interesting enough, and it wasn't posted on the occult boards, so other users quickly responded, asking the user to upload photos of it. Before they did that, the user posted a few transcribed parts that confirmed their gut feeling that this probably wasn't something they should have picked up. July 2nd. It's hot, it's hot, it's hot, it's hot. Hey, Hana-chan. Someone's name? I've left a letter out just in case. Please be my friend. Forever. July 3rd. It's cold, it's cold, it's cold. I played with Hana-chan again today. I'm not alone, huh? Right? Yeah? June 4th. For some reason it's a date from the past. You haven't forgotten, right? Time chases after me like sand in an hourglass. Strange, right? June 33rd. Hey, Hana-chan. Hey, Hana-chan. I became friends with a stranger today. We went to the park and I became a doll. Hey, Hana-chan, where are you? These diary entries were apparently followed by several blank pages before the word "hey" was written in large letters spanning 2 whole pages. The diary was obviously strange. It flitted between dates, and some dates didn't even exist, and it seemed to belong to a lonely young girl. This girl continually referenced being alone and wanting to be friends with someone. The June 33rd entry in particular mentions becoming friends with a stranger in the park and then becoming a doll. Other 2chan users found this phrase in particular to be creepy and pondered if the girl hadn't been kidnapped by this stranger, perhaps leaving the diary behind at some point. Yet that wasn't all. The original poster also found another piece of paper jammed into the middle, and this one said, "How fun life is. My wish came true at 2:25 p.m. today. I'm so glad I'm alive. I've been crying for a week. I wonder why. What is the meaning of life? It hurts so much. I'm so lonely and sad, and I can't stop crying. I'm just a normal kid, you know." Once again, the content was all over the place. The diary owner claimed their wish came true and they were happy to be alive, followed immediately by crying and wondering what the meaning of life was. The poster claimed the diary was full of mistakes and difficult to read, so they did their best to abbreviate and convey it. After that, there were several pages written in purple ink that were apparently too disgusting to even write down. And this, of course, got everyone else's attention. At this point, the poster had only shared text from this supposed diary, no pictures. Keep in mind that this was posted in 2006, so cell phone cameras at the time weren't very good. Both the resolution and image quality were low, but the user finally shared a picture of the diary itself, roughly an hour and a half after starting the thread. It was a typical Japanese language notebook, the type that children in elementary school use when practicing Japanese. The poster elaborated after questioning that their little brother had actually been the one to find it, on an embankment as they were out walking their dog. The poster didn't want to pick it up, of course, because it was dirty, but their little brother was terrified and refused to let it go after seeing the inside, so they took it home. Another user pointed out that the diary in the picture looked rather clean, to which the poster responded that it actually wasn't, and the pages inside were yellowed and old. Others pressed for the content of the purple text that revolted the original poster so much, but there was so much of it and it made little sense that they summarized it as an apology letter to the diary owner's family and friends. Other users continued to press the poster to share pictures of the inside of the diary, and roughly 2 hours after starting the thread, they finally did. The pictures were of course tiny and impossible to read, but they showed the purple text, several of the diary entries, the large "Hey" scribbled across 2 pages, and several scribbles that didn't look to be much at first, but the more people analysed them, the creepier they got. There was a large apple, an empty bench with something black whirring over it, a stick figure holding scissors, and a bird flying into a balloon. They seemed like the nonsense scribbles of a small child, although several users went into depth about the hidden meanings they might have, such as the balloon representing the child's freedom and the bird representing an outside figure swooping in to destroy that freedom. Even the original poster thought that might have been reading too deeply into things, but with little else to go on, people tried to construct a story where they could. What happened to this child? Why was the diary left on an embankment? What did the weird text and pictures mean, if they even meant anything at all? Or was it all fake, in grand Nichan tradition, and the original poster had simply created it themselves? One user even accused the poster of being the stranger mentioned in the diary, having kidnapped the girl and posting all of this as some sort of sick game. The original poster denied this, of course, and claimed that they were a girl themselves, and underage at that. Roughly 2.5 hours after posting, the original poster, now revealed to be a girl herself, claimed to have a headache and ringing ears. The TV was also making a loud, uncomfortable noise that she wasn't sure was actually coming from the TV, or perhaps it was just in her head. She shared another strange entry she found, this time dated to the 13th day of the 13th month, stating, "Today marks the 8th anniversary of that day, huh? I'm happy, so happy. So, this person with white eyes has been looking at me. When I talk to them, all they do is look down. It's strange, so strange. Who are you? Will you be my friend? Hey! Hey!" This was followed by an entry dated July 13th, stating, "Today I hammered a nail into the doll." This was likely referring to the ritual of nailing dolls to trees, done when cursing a person, but either way, the entries were clearly not written by a happy mind. The original poster's health continued to take a turn for the worse throughout the thread, and she pondered whether she should hand the diary over to police or not. Others reminded her that the police wouldn't be able to do anything with a random diary, and the poster eventually stopped posting for the night, as there was nothing else to say. She returned the following day, however, with terrible news. Apparently, her pet goldfish and dog passed away overnight. "It has to be a coincidence, right?" she said, and not even half an hour later, she returned again with another strange update. "Hang on, my doll's eyes." Another half an hour later, she returned with images of her doll's creepy eyes. The quality is obviously terrible, considering the time they were posted, but I'll leave it up to you to decide whether they're just badly photoshopped or not. By this point, other users in the thread suspected more and more that the whole story was fake, and perhaps because the story of the diary alone wasn't spreading far enough, or maybe quickly enough for the poster's likings, maybe she had returned to embellish it a little further, with the news of her pets dying overnight and her doll doing strange things. For her part, the original poster told everyone she didn't care if they thought she was trolling or not, and shared one more part from the diary. She claimed a list of 8 names was written on the last page, accompanied by, "You read it, you read it, you read it, you read it. Hey, let's be friends. You're all alone, you're all alone. That's why. Hey." And with this, the original poster claimed she was done with the whole thing. She said she would be deleting the images once the thread reached its end, and she wanted to believe the diary was nothing more than a child's prank, because it was too scary to think of any other possibility. As the thread neared the 1,000 comment limit, she said people could feel free to start a new one, but she wouldn't be posting in it again. she was done, and people could feel free to believe or not believe that she was telling the truth. Users did start a new thread, but true to her word, the original poster never showed up again. And true to her word again, the poster deleted her images and the thread itself can no longer be found. Numerous websites saved it before it was deleted, however, and it's through these websites that you can still read the old thread today. In the end, no one discovered the truth behind the diary. Was it real? Was it a prank? Did the original poster create the whole story herself, or was she another innocent victim in someone else's prank? Or, perhaps the scariest option of all, was it all true, and she just happened across the dark and confusing thoughts of a lost and lonely child? What did it all mean? Nobody knows, and that's what made this thread stick around for so long, even after being purged from 2chan itself. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll leave a link if you want to read a longer translation of the thread itself. Thanks guys, I'll see you again next time. 2chan is a big place that has been running for several decades now. Over the years, some truly terrifying incidents have popped up that turned out to be real, as well as plenty more that turned out to be fake. There has also been numerous events that turned out to be nothing more than coincidences. The mystery we're going to be looking at this week is still debated in numerous circles from people who have taken all sides of the story. Let's start at the beginning. On June 29th, 2010, at 1:55 in the afternoon, someone posted the following. I'll also leave a link in the comments if you want to read a full translation of the relevant parts of this thread. I work the front desk at a certain hotel in Doto, Hokkaido. The other day, I got a phone call from a guest who was quite a few hours past their reservation time. I'm terribly sorry. Seems I've gotten lost. They seemed to be driving, so they quickly hung up. After that, it was time to change shifts, so I went home. When I looked at the newspaper the next morning, I discovered that guest had died in an accident. There were witnesses, so the exact time it happened was also there. It was 2 hours before I received the call. Where exactly had this person gotten lost? Plus, yesterday, I had a missed call on my private phone. It was 47 seconds of what sounded like mumbling and groaning. I'm planning to have myself purified at 4 PM today. At first glance, it's a fairly standard creepypasta. A man working the reception desk at a hotel gets a call from a guest who is late, and in the end, that guest never shows up. The following morning, they discover, thanks to the newspaper, that the guest died. But not only had the guest died, they died before they made their phone call to the hotel. Creepy, sure, but certainly not anything new for the likes of 2chan. That's just Tuesday over there. Several users replied with possibilities for how this could have happened, supposing the story was true in the first place. Maybe it was a wrong number. Maybe it was a prank call. Either way, the original poster revealed that the whole thing had freaked them out a little too much, and there was no logical or possible way for the guest, if it was indeed the dead guest, to have reached their private cell phone number as well. As such, the hotel worker had taken some paid time off and was on their way down to Kyoto to see a spirit medium recommended by a friend. This medium was going to perform a purification ritual for them, just in case. This ritual might only be for their peace of mind, but it still couldn't hurt to have it done either way. The same user returned at 7:14 PM, just over 5 hours later. They reported that they had just gotten back to their hotel after seeing the medium, and it all went well, other than one little event that chilled them. Upon seeing the hotel worker, the spirit medium immediately said, "You brought a man and a woman with you. Wow, they're so pitiful. Was it a car accident? Meaning, if the spirit medium was to be believed, the hotel worker was indeed possessed, and it would likely be the dead guest that they'd gotten the phone call from. And it wasn't just one spirit, but two. And the accident hadn't been a nice one. The spirit medium had no way of knowing what had happened, as the hotel worker's friend didn't even know, so it was either a very lucky coincidence or the purification had been a great idea. The medium informed the hotel worker that the guest's phone was under the passenger's seat when the call was made, meaning there really was no way the call could have been made while the driver was still alive. How the medium knew this, I don't know, but that's why they're mediums and I'm not. The hotel worker reported that their phone continued to buzz like crazy the entire time the ritual was taking place, and then fell silent and died right at the end. The ritual was a success, although not without its own fair share of scares. The hotel worker reportedly told their colleagues that they were visiting Kyoto for a family member's memorial service. Nobody knew the real reason they were there, other than the spirit medium, obviously, who didn't know the full details, only that they were there to perform a purification for this person. Several questions piled up as the hotel worker disappeared for a bit, and then they returned at 8:48 p.m, claiming they'd gone out to get some alcohol. They reiterated that nothing like this had ever happened to them before, and they were now too scared to even sleep. Replies and even support continued to flood in, and the hotel worker returned at 9:46 p.m. for what would be their final comment in the thread. Thank you very much. Although I think the purification was a success. The medium I mentioned before appears to be someone I can trust either way. I've worked hotel reception for many years now, so I think I have a good eye for people, and they had a very good face. Plus, they didn't take any payment other than the refreshments I handed over when we met. What makes me nervous now is that I can see a whole new world that I couldn't see before. I haven't been this scared since I was a boy. The hotel worker mentioned that they wanted to go sightseeing the following day, but they had a night shift back in Hokkaido, so they wouldn't be able to stick around. And that, seemingly, was that. At least, until a single comment made a chill run through everyone's spine who had been following the story. The following was posted at 7:51 a.m. the following day. Is that hotel worker still here? This is no joke. Around 1 a.m. on the 30th, Tanaka Hideaki, 48, a hotel employee from Obihiro City, Hokkaido, was found collapsed at the intersection of Route 143, Higashiyama Ward, Kyoto. A passerby called 119. When firefighters arrived on the scene, they discovered Mr. Tanaka had been hit by something large and was already dead. The Higashiyama Police Department is investigating the case as a hit and run. Mr. Tanaka was returning home for a memorial service. This news report, if true, indicated that a hotel worker from Hokkaido was hit by a car and died in Kyoto only 3 hours after the hotel worker's final post. And the hotel worker never posted again. If so, did that mean that Mr. Tanaka was the same hotel worker from the thread? It was certainly a chilling coincidence, and the details were so distinct that it seemed impossible to be just a coincidence. How many hotel workers from Hokkaido would have been in Kyoto on that night for what everyone assumed was a memorial service? And to die in a hit and run when the 2channel poster had just gotten done telling their story of being haunted by the ghosts of a couple who died in a car crash. It was a bit much. But, being 2channel, this still wasn't the full story. Several other users immediately asked for a source on this news tidbit because nobody could find any information about this supposed hit and run. It wasn't like the news article was vague either. It stated the person's name, where they were from, and even where and when the accident happened. The person who posted this particular tidbit never provided a source in the end, and soon disappeared from the thread as well. In the years following, no one has been able to find any evidence that this accident ever took place either. If it did, it was never officially recorded anywhere, which seems strange. Searching with the details from the post only ever leads back to that 2chan comment and never anywhere else. The most likely answer, being that we're dealing with 2chan here, is that someone made the story up the following morning to get a rise out of people. That's how the best creepypastas and mysteries come about, isn't it? A little community work to build a story that has a sudden and tragic ending. The fact that the hotel worker never returned didn't mean much. Perhaps they had shared their story and they were done. Perhaps their story was also fake to begin with, and once posted, their work was done. Maybe they did see the reply and thought it best not to reply themselves because that would most definitely be scarier, and it would keep people talking about it for years to come. Or maybe, in the strangest of coincidences, it was all true, and this person really was hit by a car and died, even though nobody reported on it anywhere. This is the most unlikely option, but, you know, never say never. But what do you guys think? Was the hotel worker's story fake to begin with? Could there have been some truth to it that another user then jumped onto in order to create their own story? Could they have been working together from the start? Or perhaps, was there a minuscule chance that it was, in the end, all true? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. On February 16th, 2011, 2:10 AM, a 2channel user posted the following in a thread titled, "Can you help me solve this code?" There was some trouble in our university group of friends. To put it simply, there was a love triangle, and thanks to that, one of the people involved dropped out of school and our group of friends. After that, nobody heard from him again, and we lost contact with him. But recently, he's been sending the other person involved in the love triangle letters, been making silent phone calls and such. We talked about it, and apparently the letter contents were a code of some sort. There were lines of strange numbers. I wrote these numbers down and looked them up, but it's a mystery, so I'm here talking to you guys. I'll upload the whole code for you. This is the picture he uploaded. As you can see, it's 4 lines of seemingly random numbers. The original poster explained the scribbled number as a simple mistake, and after a few people pointed out the full stops at the end of the lines, the poster also noted that he had added those himself as a habit. They weren't part of the original letter. So, this was the code he was hoping 2channelers could solve. What exactly did these mysterious numbers mean? It was the beginning of what would turn into one of 2channel's most legendary threads. Settle in, this is a good one. At first, other users had no idea what the numbers could mean. There didn't seem to be any pattern. Reading them left to right, vertically, etc. didn't seem to produce any pattern either. After several users complained that the numbers were too messy to read, the original poster uploaded them again as text, which you can see here. Each line of numbers had a comma somewhere around the middle, but even that wasn't exact, as the comma in the 3rd line was after the first 4 numbers, rather than the first 7 or 8 of the other lines. The original poster revealed that he was in the 2nd grade of university, doing an arts degree, as was the person who had sent this letter to his friend. He didn't know much about this other guy, other than he liked reading books. So, not a whole lot to go off, He had obviously discussed this letter with his friends already, but they had no idea either, which was why he was posting it on 2channel. Everyone was at a loss as to what it could mean. It wasn't until 20 minutes after the first post that someone hit upon an idea. There was a good chance that these long strings of numbers actually referred to places. They were potentially coordinates. As it turned out, 3 of these lines of numbers did lead to locations within Japan. The first line led to Sumiyoshi-dai Junior High School in Sendai, Miyagi Prefecture. The second line led to Hikarigaoka Natsuno Kumo Elementary School in Nerima, Tokyo, and the fourth line pointed to Fukuoka Kenritsu Shuyukan Koto School in Fukuoka City, Fukuoka Prefecture. After finally figuring out where to properly place the period in the third line, people realized it also pointed to a location in Japan. Sapporo University Women's Junior College in Hokkaido. Notice anything in common with these 4 locations. Other than all being within Japan, they were also all schools. In fact, 1 elementary school, 1 junior high, 1 high school, and 1 university. Seemed the numbers weren't random after all. In the end, they were coordinates pointing to 4 different schools all throughout Japan. But that just deepened the mystery. Why did this unlucky-in-love man send a letter to the girl who rejected him with coordinates to various schools across the country? Discovering that these numbers led to different locations across Japan kicked the thread into overdrive. Hokkaido, Sendai, Tokyo, Fukuoka. Once again, 2channelers had made progress with a mystery and they were even more determined to solve it. At 2:47 AM, 2 posters in the thread revealed that they lived near the elementary school in Tokyo, and one of them decided to go out and check it out for himself, see if there was anything interesting there. In the meantime, the original poster returned with a little more information. He didn't wish to dox himself or anyone else involved, but revealed that he was a university student in Fukushima. The guy involved in the love triangle, the one sending the letters, was disliked by pretty much everyone in their friends circle, and as such, they didn't know too much about him because they tended to avoid him. All he did know was that this person came from outside the prefecture, and after he quit university, he moved again. He had no idea where he was at that particular time. At 4:13 AM, the Tokyo poster returned. He claimed to have visited the elementary school and found some packing tape stuck to the sign of the school's name. He provided picture proof of this, and the number 37 could be seen written on the tape. Once again, the mystery deepened. Seemed it really was all connected. Of course, 2channelers are rightfully a suspicious lot, and someone asked if anyone else in the thread could analyze the photo to determine when it was taken. It was indeed taken that very same night, at 3:56 AM, making the photo, at the very least, real. It was also at this point that other users realized that maybe the other 3 locations also had packing tape with numbers written on it. They wouldn't be able to solve the riddle until they had the numbers from all 4 locations, if these numbers even existed. One piece of tape at a school could be nothing more than a coincidence. It required further investigations. Another user appeared around 4:30 AM and claimed that they lived near the Fukuoka school. They were going to head over and check it out for themselves. In the meantime, another user decided to check the metadata recorded in the original photo with the numbers. Here, things once again got interesting. It turned out the photo had been taken at 9:11 AM on March 31st, 2007, 4 years earlier. The original poster claimed that this only just happened, So why and how could the photo have been taken 4 years earlier? Coincidentally, the original poster was oddly quiet around this time, seemingly disappearing from the thread. When several people pointed this out, the original poster returned with a blank reply, which got everyone else worked up again. The other user had also arrived at the Fukuoka school, but apparently didn't find anything of note. Was it all a coincidence then? Yet, that same person from Fukuoka returned at 5:13 AM with a message that shook the thread. You guys, listen up. Like 147 said, I found some plastic tape. It was stuck to the old gate nobody uses anymore. This user also posted a picture, but it was pitch black. They ended up taking the tape home and taking another photo, and this one revealed the number 140. 2 of the schools had a piece of tape stuck near the gates with a number written on them. It was too much to be a coincidence. Clearly, this was deliberate. All that was left was the other 2 schools, in Sendai and Sapporo. At 5:21, someone in Sendai appeared, followed shortly by another. The first poster beat them to the punch and, as expected, found some tape with numbers on it attached to the school. This one said 877314. The second Sendai user confirmed that they also saw the same tape, as well as one more attached to a construction site nearby with the number 7 on it. Whether this was related or not was unknown. Finally, at 5:59 AM, someone from Sapporo appeared, and they headed out to grab the final piece of the puzzle. They found some tape stuck to the school gates, with the number 932.077 on it. With all numbers on hand, it became clear that, once again, they were coordinates. Plugging these into Google Maps led to an interesting location, to say the least. A place called Tsurishi Beach. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the term, Tsurishi is a Japanese term for internet trolls. After 4 hours of trying to solve the riddle of the mysterious numbers, after people literally all over the country running around in the middle of the night, finding pieces of tape stuck to random schools in random cities, the numbers on those pieces of tape led to a location called Tsurishi Beach. They had all, in fact, been trolled, and trolled hard. It was at this point that the original poster finally returned, with a simple and straight-to-the-point comment. I'm sorry for everything. Everyone realized they had been played, caught in an epic troll that, if the original photo metadata was correct, had been 4 years in the making. And the original poster confirmed that this was true in the 1000th and final comment of the thread. This all started 4 years ago. The original poster had written down the coordinates of 4 schools around the country, and then taken a photo of his own note. Then, over the next 4 years, he visited each of these locations and stuck a piece of tape with a number on it, somewhere slightly out of the way, but visible if someone were to go looking for it. Somehow, miraculously, these pieces of tape managed to last until the poster was ready to make his move. Once all the pieces were in place, he created the thread, posted the image that he took 4 years earlier, and then left 2channel to figure it out. And figure it out they did. It took them less than 5 hours from the very first post to figure out what those numbers meant, track down the locations, send people out to each of these sites, then gather the numbers all together to create another set of coordinates. This one leading to a location that, through a pun, revealed it was all nothing more than a massive troll. It was those 4 years of effort and the combination of 2channelers who set out into the cold winter night to help solve the problem that made this thread so memorable. And even today, it's still considered one of the best and most legendary threads to have ever come out of 2channel. Even the best laid plans can fall apart, especially over such a long period of time. But this user managed to pull it off, and what a troll it was. What do you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. This week's internet mystery is short, sweet, and to the point. But the more you think about it, the more horrifying it becomes. Let's head on in. On January 18, 2011, a 2channel user posted a thread titled, "Are there any survivors of the Great Hanshin earthquake here?" The Great Hanshin earthquake took place on January 17, 1995, 16 years and 1 day prior to the thread's creation. People in the thread talked a little about the earthquake and people they knew who had been in it. And then, in the 19th comment of the thread, someone posted the following. "There used to be a guy here who was in both the Hanshin and Miyagi earthquakes, right?" I laughed when everyone was like, "Don't you come and visit my prefecture?" Another user replied, "Wasn't he in the Niigata earthquake as well?" The earthquakes they were likely referring to were the magnitude 6 earthquake that hit Miyagi on May 26, 2003, and the magnitude 6.8 earthquake that hit Niigata on 23rd of October, 2004. Seemed there was a user from the Nusoku boards, that particular board they were posting on at the time, who was infamous for always being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He'd become somewhat of a legend, known as the Earthquake Man, with other users jokingly telling him not to visit their prefectures because they didn't want an earthquake to hit them as well. The man himself showed up later that day to reply to the original comment. "That was me. When I visited Osaka for work, the Great Hanshin quake hit. When I went to Niigata for work, the Chuetsu quake hit. And when I went to Ishikawa, the Noto Hanto quake hit. I was hit by 3 major earthquakes on my business trips." Seemed the users were slightly off on which earthquakes the user had been involved in, but they had mostly gotten it right. This man had been involved in 3 large earthquakes, all while on business trips to different prefectures. First Osaka, then Niigata, then Ishikawa. Yet, the next line, in hindsight, became the most chilling sentence of all. "I'm heading to Iwate Prefecture around the middle of March this year. I sure hope there won't be an earthquake this time." As you no doubt know, on March 11, 2011, the Tohoku earthquake struck Japan. Iwate was one of the prefectures worst hit by the earthquake and subsequent tsunami, which reached over 40 meters high in some parts. This earthquake was so massive that it moved the main island of Japan nearly 2.5 meters to the east, shifted the Earth's axis by 10 to 25 centimeters, and even increased the Earth's rotation speed by 1.8 microseconds a day. Japan is still being hit by aftershocks today, over 10 years later. And it has been considered by many one of the major turning points in Japan's modern history. I was living in Japan myself at the time, and it's one of those moments where you never forget where you were and what you were doing when you first heard news of it. I'm heading to Iwate Prefecture around the middle of March this year. I sure hope there won't be an earthquake this time. The odds of someone ending up in 3 large earthquakes while on business is slim, but certainly not impossible. Yes, Japan is hit by earthquakes daily, but ones of this scale are certainly much rarer, and it's frightening to think about. It's not impossible, but it is incredibly bad luck, and you might start to wonder if you're cursed after it's happened 3 times. But that final line, posted 2 months before the 2011 Tohoku earthquake hit, about visiting Iwate, one of the prefectures worst hit by the largest earthquake ever recorded in Japanese history, certainly sends a chill down your spine. Only a few comments later, someone posted, "Don't come here, idiot," and others tried to guide him around their own prefectures so that they might not get hit for this upcoming business trip he was about to take. Now, do I believe that this man somehow caused all 4 tragedies? Absolutely not. He was incredibly unlucky to be in all of these places as earthquakes happened, but businessmen in Japan travel all the time. It's part of the job, and although unlikely, certainly not impossible to be in each location as each earthquake hit. But that final comment is certainly chilling, no matter how you look at it, and impossible for him to have predicted, if that was indeed his goal at the time. It's important to remember that things seemingly get predicted on 2channel all the time. With the absolutely massive amount of messages posted there each and every day, it makes sense that, statistically, at least a few of them are going to predict something correctly. And, through pure coincidence, this unfortunate businessman found himself unknowingly heading into the 4th and, by far the biggest, earthquake of his life. What happened to him after that, however, is unknown. After the Tohoku earthquake hit, numerous users dug up his former comment and it took on a whole new terrifying meaning. To this day, it's still shared as one of the more uncomfortable and chilling single comments ever made on the boards. Some even called him a modern-day Ryon Mensukuna, referencing the famous 2channel story about a mummy that literally causes catastrophes wherever it goes. In a thread posted on September 27, 2011, a user claiming to be the legendary Earthquake Man appeared. But, being 2channel, there was of course no way to confirm whether it really was him or not. The thread warned of a massive earthquake about to hit the Kanto area in the next 24 hours. Someone in the thread replied, "I don't have any business trips, so there's no way there's gonna be an earthquake." Of course, people instantly assumed this was the same man and asked if he was able to safely return from Iwate. "I returned home safely on a large boat," he said, before leaving one final comment. "I was almost crushed in the Great Hanshin earthquake, but if I'd been 5 minutes later this time around, I would have been washed away." There has been debate about whether this really was the same person or not. But ultimately, we may never know. It could just as easily have been someone else posing as him, as it's not uncommon for other people to include themselves in famous stories on the boards, or even pretend to be someone else from a famous story instead. On November 15, 2016, another user posted a thread titled, "I'm the user who runs into earthquakes wherever I go," with a threat that he was going to Tokyo the following day. Of course, no major earthquake struck Tokyo that day, and many refused to believe that he was the same legendary Earthquake Man to begin with. Numerous comments over the years have tried to jump in on the trend by claiming, "That's me. I'm heading to such and such location tomorrow. See you there." But none of them ever came true. So, where is the legendary Earthquake Man now? Nobody is quite sure, but hopefully he safely made it out of his Iwate business trip that year. Whether that really was him or not who appeared in later threads is unknown, but either way, hopefully he made it out okay. But what do you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you again next time. On August 22nd, 2008, a 2channel user posted a thread titled, "There's a man in white standing in front of my house," at 1:17 AM. I just realized he's been standing out there for over 4 hours now. He's just standing there in front of my house. He's wearing all white, and he's swaying side to side. This is the photo I took from my veranda. The white person. Here's the upload. They shared a rather dark photo that shows a person dressed all in white standing in front of their apartment. Here's what it looks like with the brightness turned up and zoomed in a little. Other users, naturally, responded with thoughts and prayers and statements of how terrifying it was. I was on my way home, almost to my apartment, when I noticed someone standing by the entrance, he said. He was covered head to toe in white with his back to me. Plus he was swaying side to side. I couldn't see his face, but he seemed to be gripping a torn piece of paper or something in his hand. He looked like an enemy from Silent Hill, so it freaked me out. But he didn't attack me or anything, so I called out, "Good evening," even though I should have just ignored him. I was scared, but I figured talking to him would allow me to confirm if he was a normal person or not. I really shouldn't have done that. Some users told him to keep his curtains closed. Others felt like the man in the image was getting closer each time they looked at it, and another claimed that there must be some scalar waves nearby. A few minutes later, another user told him to post this image on his door, as it would keep him safe. "No, that'll just invite him in," another laughed. The comment about the scalar waves and the image he should post on his door were references to Panna Wave Laboratory, a Japanese cult that shot to fame in the 1980s and 90s. Members dressed in all white, like the man standing in front of the 2channel user's apartment, because they claimed it would protect them from harmful scalar waves. The cult also claimed that this particular image would protect people from the same harmful waves. As soon as I called out to him, the person in white stopped swaying, this time freezing on the spot. It was creepy. He looked human, but he didn't seem human at all. I rushed past him into the entrance. Our building has an automatic lock, so I figured I'd be safe once I got inside, right? The user continued. By the time I reached my apartment on the 7th floor, I felt less scared and more annoyed. I just moved into this place. I thought maybe he was some crazy guy who escaped, but I tried convincing myself that his white clothes were just work clothes or something. The user didn't want to use the flash on his camera, because then the person downstairs would realize he was taking photos of him. He also claimed that after taking a bath, he went out onto his veranda to have a cigarette and noticed the man was still there. More than an hour had passed since he first saw him, and as he was typing, the man was still down there. Other users in the thread told the man to call the police. Others wondered who exactly he could be. Was the man a cult member? Did he escape from a hospital somewhere? Was he a regular weirdo? Why was he all in white? Why was he standing at the bottom of an apartment building, swaying side to side? And what was he holding in his hand? To make matters worse, the user noted that the man had moved from the apartment building entrance to directly below his apartment. He seemed to know where the man lived and that the man was watching him, despite not using the flash on his camera, and despite having no way of knowing where the man might go once he entered the building. Was this perhaps someone with a grudge against him? Or maybe someone trying to scare him? The user had only moved into this particular apartment 6 weeks earlier. He was new in town and didn't know many people. So, who was that person downstairs? And did he really know him, or was it something entirely unrelated? Like an escaped patient. Before posting on 2channel, he spent the last few hours going back out to his veranda to check if the man was still there. And he was, swaying side to side but otherwise unmoving. This naturally drew comparisons to Kunekune, the other white wobbly figure that 2channel loves so much. People continued to insist that he call the police, but the user himself wasn't so sure. Is that really the right answer here? What should I do? Someone tell me. I have work in the morning, so I'd rather avoid hassle. At 1:45 a.m, he then uploaded another photo. I took this just now. He's still there. If it was some cool girl with glasses instead of this guy in white, then I'd invite her in to spend the night. The dark photo once again showed the man standing still at the bottom of his building, slightly hunched over and generally looking creepy, especially considering it was nearly 2 a.m. The user admitted he was scared, but also excited by the building situation. He never expected to experience something like an urban legend happening right before his very eyes. He debated heading downstairs to take on the man, which other users of course agreed with and even egged him on, and he returned just before 2 a.m. with, "Shit, he saw my face. I think he saw me taking a photo. I might have gone too far. Is he looking at me? Am I seeing things? Someone tell me. I don't like this." He shared a photo where the flash appeared to have gone off on his veranda, and the man in white downstairs was looking up at him. Another user scanned the photo data and revealed that it was taken at 12:48 a.m. that night, roughly an hour before the user posted it. It's possible the time on the camera wasn't set right, or that it was simply shared a little later, despite claiming that he had just taken it. But either way, the user claimed his camera seemed to be set to auto mode when he took that most recent photo, which caused the flash to go off. He feared that now the man would come and attack him instead. He then debated taking a plastic bat, all he had, downstairs to question the man. "Why are you here? What are you doing?" But at 2:09 a.m., the man disappeared, and there was something on the ground where he had been standing. It looked like a piece of paper. The man went downstairs to retrieve it, and then shared a photo of it in the thread. It appeared to be a torn family photo. Not what people had been expecting. Many users in the thread expected the piece of paper to say something like, "Haha, you've been trolled." This torn family photo didn't make much sense. The unnaturalness of it, the fact that it made no sense, made it even creepier. What was the meaning behind the photo? Why did the man in white leave it behind? Where did he even go? Did he have a family that lived in the building? Had they moved to try and escape him? Some wondered if anything was written on the back, but there was nothing. It was just a torn family photo. The man claimed he was so excited that he accidentally left his bat outside when he went to get the photo. Then, 10 minutes later, the man in white seemingly returned. Only this time, he was wandering around the apartment building's halls. Somehow, he'd gotten in. Then, at 2:22 a.m., as the thread was reaching its 1,000 comment limit, the original poster shared one more message. Yeah, of course. Saying I had a job was fake as well. Once again, it appeared that readers in the thread had been taken on a trip. The whole thing was nothing more than another troll. Another thread was quickly started, and the original poster took the opportunity to explain himself. I didn't think the wild delusions of a creepy, unpopular man such as myself would go this far. I was having a good laugh about it all, but I'm real sorry for dragging it out. Thanks to everyone who joined me until daybreak. But it was in this message that users once again noticed something else. When read vertically, the first characters spelt out, "Tasukete yo," help me. What on earth was going on? The original poster shared one final comment that claimed that the person in white was really his friend, and that was it. He never appeared again. But some users remained suspicious. Was the person in white really his friend? Others claimed that the comments made by the original poster seemed to change in tone and expression partway through, meaning that perhaps someone else was posting instead. Did the person in white get into his house? Did the person in white make the final few comments? Were they being trolled on top of a troll in some type of trollception? The user never returned, so the thread ended in mystery, ultimately being chalked up to yet another of 2channel's legendary troll threads. It came back into the spotlight in 2019, however, when almost 11 years to the day after the 2channel thread was made, security footage was shared from a house in Ibaraki Prefecture that showed a man fully dressed in white loitering outside at 1 AM. Also, the same time the 2channel user started their thread back in 2008. Then, the same man was seen running from another house at 2:50 AM, also around the same time the original poster made his final comment that night. This man had stabbed an elderly couple who lived inside numerous times, and police arrested him shortly thereafter. This was, of course, nothing more than a coincidence, as the alleged killer in this case was only 21 years old. Far too young to have anything to do with the original 2channel thread, but the similarities certainly caught people's eye. Yet another murder case in Ibaraki the same year also saw another person captured on security footage, dressed fully in white, making people wonder if the cases were connected, or even if they were the same person. The latter case is still unsolved. At the end of the day, the original thread was likely nothing more than a troll. The photo data revealed that the photos had been taken before the original poster's first comment. And while this can be explained away as just having an incorrect time set in his camera, when combined with everything else, including the reveal at the end that yes, it was nothing more than a troll, and that person was just his friend, there's no real reason to doubt that it was anything else. As for the later people caught on security cameras in Ibaraki a decade later, well, those cases are still ongoing, but the white clothes are undoubtedly nothing more than a coincidence, as is the times. But what do you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. Back on June 25th, 2006, a 2channel user posted what was about to become one of the forum's most legendary threads, something that people look back upon fondly and with great nostalgia even today. The title stated, "I think my ancestors were terrifying people," and the opening comment stated, "I was cleaning our family altar yesterday, and I found a few old documents. One of them looks like it has some oni or something eating people. Looking closer, it looks like that oni has the name of my ancestors written on it. I'm kinda terrified." A few comments later, the original poster asked if there was anybody around who could read Old Japanese. He couldn't understand the document and what its strange pictures meant. Naturally, other users asked the man if he could upload a picture of the document so they could see for themselves. At 6:15 AM, 5 minutes after starting the thread, the original poster shared an image. The picture was later described as being roughly half the size of an A4 piece of paper, and as you can see, it does indeed have some frightening images of creatures that look to be eating and torturing humans, and a bunch of old Japanese text alongside it. Even for native Japanese speakers, this type of text can be hard to decipher, and other readers immediately set to work trying to figure it out. What on earth could this old scroll mean? Were the original poster's ancestors actually murderers? What was the significance of the demonic-looking creatures? And why was it in his family altar? While other users attempted to decipher the text, the original poster revealed that his family altar hadn't been moved in 200 years, meaning the document was at least that old. Who put it there, and why, obviously remained unknown. One of the first phrases that users picked out was shokujin, which means cannibalism. This appeared to fit the image of the demonic-looking creatures eating other people. Did that mean that the original poster's ancestors had actually taken part in cannibalism? Naturally, this brings up a whole new set of questions. Supposing this document actually was from his ancestors, why would they draw themselves as cannibals? Why would they place it in the family altar for safekeeping? It was possible the document wasn't created by his family, but perhaps other villagers trying to warn others about the horrific deeds that they were up to. But again, why was it kept for safekeeping in his family altar? Another 10 minutes later, someone figured out what looked like a date. Bunsei Year 8, July 7. Year 8 of the Bunsei era would be 1826, so almost 200 years earlier. This would line up with the original poster claiming that it had been 200 years since the altar was moved. If so, then the document must have been placed there soon after it was created. But by who and why? Why were his ancestors being depicted as demons that ate other people? One user in the thread offered up a theory that others were mostly in agreement with. The original poster's ancestors were indeed cannibals. Maybe not frequent ones, but they at least had a custom of it. And they created that document to keep a record of it. If it was placed in the family altar, then it would clearly only be meant for family eyes, after all. A way of passing down a horrific tradition. Other users asked to see the other side of the document, and while the original poster went off to scan it, they continued deciphering the characters. On this, there was less agreement, and people randomly threw out what they thought they could make out. Several users thought that the word shokujin, or cannibal, was followed by the character for either country or garden. Others spotted a phrase meaning to treasure something by never removing it. Others spotted what looked like the word slaughter or massacre. Yet another thought that one part looked like a proclamation of punishment for those who broke the village rules. The original poster finally returned with a scan of the other side. It featured a few more crudely drawn pictures of the creatures in what he claimed were probably practice, before the other side was drawn up properly. He also confirmed the piece of paper came from underneath the altar, and because it was rather heavy, it had probably been there since it was first built. The plot thickened when the original poster returned a few minutes later with an update. His grandfather was awake, so he asked him about the document. His grandfather told him that during the Bunsei era, there was a large flood, and the river that flowed through the center of the then village overflowed, causing several years of bad harvests. A brief search of local history confirmed that, yes, there was a large flood in the area during Bunsei Year 5, so 3 years before the date that was seemingly on the paper. This part is actually true, and there are records of a large flood taking place in Bunsei Year 5, 1822 in Western years, in Kochi Prefecture. So far, so good. A story was starting to take shape. A flood destroyed much of the harvest and harvest land in their local village almost 200 years earlier. If the document was anything to go by, the original poster's ancestors then potentially turned to cannibalism to survive, and this was, for some reason, recorded for posterity and placed for safekeeping under the newly built family altar. Perhaps as a reminder of the horrific deeds they had undertaken to survive. The poster asked his grandfather about that particular aspect, but he apparently knew nothing of it. He claimed the monsters in the document were probably just people starving in a famine. Maybe not literal demons eating other people, but suffering greatly nevertheless. This flood wasn't a famous incident at the time, but apparently caused the loss of about 60% of the village's farming land. More than enough to cause a food shortage, leading to a famine. It seemed the user had dug up an interesting piece of history. A document almost 200 years old, drawn by his ancestors, one of whom was apparently the village chief, and then left under the family altar for later generations to find. Perhaps a sort of diary or report on what happened to them all those years earlier. Why the images were so scary and why his ancestors were depicted as monsters, however, remained unknown. As other users continued attempting to decipher it, it seemed the text was indeed talking about a punishment for breaking the village's rules. there was also mention of the slaughter of travelers, but how these related was unclear. The original poster's grandfather also told him that the image wasn't something he should be showing other people, so he should get rid of it quickly. Of course, it was far too late for that. The story developed even further when the original poster revealed that there was a tombstone where his ancestors were buried that had the character for Oni carved into it. He asked his grandfather about it, and apparently the full text translated roughly to Memorial Tower for the Snake Oni. He also shared another image with even more old documents that were apparently also with the original one, but these were just text with no images. They were, apparently, simply related to land surveys. At 7:44 a.m, the original poster said he was going out to check out the grave with the memorial tower. The thread reached its 1,000 comment limit soon thereafter, and a second was created to keep going. He then returned after 8 and claimed to have lost his phone somewhere on the way up the hill to check the memorial tower. At any rate, he copied down what it said, and in addition to what his grandfather told him, there was a type of date and his own family surname carved on it. The date referred to the year of the wood monkey, which is part of the Chinese zodiac. The year of the wood monkey only comes around once every 60 years, so in the context of this story, it was likely referring to the year 1824, shortly after the flood, and shortly before the document was apparently written. As for the snake kanji on the stone, people theorized that perhaps it actually stood in for the word Oni and didn't literally refer to a snake. Or perhaps the stone was dedicated to a snake kami-sama. Or maybe snake was simply a code word for something else that had been lost over the years. Or even for the word cannibal itself. As other users continued debating what it all meant, the original poster returned at 8:21 with an ominous message. I found another document that seems to be related. 5 minutes later, he then posted another image. Even if you can't read the Japanese, the meaning should no doubt be clear from the tiny picture down the bottom. The text says, "Sadly, it was all fake." Yes, once again the entire thread was one big troll, planned from the beginning. But that wasn't the end. As the other users laughed at how well they'd been played, and the amount of work that went into pulling off this high-quality troll, the user posted an image of himself with some final words. "Well, well, everyone. Did you have fun? I was the one who wrote the document. But the paper really is 200 years old, and the writing should be flawless as well, haha." The takeaway everyone took from this was not that they'd been trolled and they'd all fallen for it, but rather that the paper he actually used was 200 years old. This was apparently the most shocking part of all, and many wondered why he'd destroy such ancient paper just for a 2channel troll. "There's no way we're ever gonna beat a troll 200 years in the making," some muttered, and the original poster revealed he collected the paper from some 200-year-old sliding screens in his house. It wasn't good ancient paper, perhaps, but it was still several centuries old, and he'd put it to use for a 2channel troll thread. As for the content, he admitted that he made up a lot of it and it didn't really make sense. He posted the mostly meaningless characters he'd written in the thread anyway, and most users had already picked out the few bits that did make sense, such as the part about punishments and travelers. The photo he shared of the land surveys, however, were real surveys. That part wasn't fake either. The thread ended with throngs of users calling him a troll god, and he posted one last picture claiming credit for the production. Although it was over rather fast by most 2channel troll thread standards, it stands out today as a favourite amongst 2channel users because of the effort that went into creating it, and the real research that had been done beforehand to fool those who went looking further into it that it might be the real thing. Plus, yeah, the paper actually was 200 years old. How many people can claim that for their trolls? But what do you guys think about this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.